The crystalline spires of Nexus Prime Academy stretched toward the binary stars like frozen lightning, their surfaces reflecting the perpetual aurora that danced across the planet's upper atmosphere. Maya Chen stood at the transport platform, her worn duffel bag slung across her shoulder, trying not to gawk at the architectural marvel before her. The Academy was legendary throughout the Galactic Federation, a place where only the most gifted beings from across 7 sectors came to study advanced sciences, military strategy, and interspecies diplomacy. Around her, the platform buzzed with activity as new students disembarked from sleek vessels that made her own transport shuttle look like scrap metal. A towering Zephyrian with crystalline skin caught the light as he moved, his natural armor plates shifting with each step. Nearby, a group of Valkyrie floated in their environmental suits, their tentacles gesturing in what Maya assumed was excited conversation through their translators. She pulled her hood up slightly, hoping to blend in despite being one of only 3 humans visible on the entire platform. "Attention new inductees," a melodious voice announced across the platform in perfect galactic standard. "Please proceed to the orientation hall for species verification and academic placement testing. Follow the blue guidance lights." Maya joined the stream of beings moving toward the massive entrance. The Academy's reputation was built on 3 centuries of producing the galaxy's finest minds, scientists who had unlocked the secrets of faster-than-light travel, diplomats who had prevented countless wars, and military strategists whose tactical innovations were studied in war colleges across known space. Getting accepted here was nearly impossible for most species. For humans, it was supposedly unthinkable. The Terran Republic was still considered a junior member of the Galactic Federation, having achieved space flight only 2 centuries ago. Most galactic species viewed humans as ambitious but, ultimately limited, good for manual labor and basic engineering, but lacking the intellectual sophistication for truly advanced fields. Maya had spent years carefully crafting her application, using intermediary contacts and forged recommendations to hide her true species while highlighting her academic achievements. The orientation hall was a vast amphitheater with seating arranged to accommodate hundreds of different physiologies. Maya found herself squeezed between a methane-breathing Corvin whose environmental suit hummed constantly and a Deltan whose 4 arms were already taking detailed notes on a holographic display. She tried to make herself small as a figure approached the central podium. Dean Valexthar was legendary even among the Academy's distinguished faculty. The ancient Etherian's translucent form shimmered as he moved, his species' natural energy patterns creating subtle light displays beneath his skin. He had been at the Academy for over 6 centuries, personally training some of the most influential figures in galactic history. When he spoke, the hall fell silent instantly. "Welcome to Nexus Prime Academy," his voice resonated without need for amplification, a trait of his species that had made them natural leaders and educators. "You represent the finest minds your worlds have to offer. You have been selected not merely for your academic achievements, but for your potential to shape the future of our galaxy." Maya felt a chill run down her spine as the dean's ancient eyes seemed to scan the assembled crowd. She had read every available text about Etherian psychology. Their species was known for an almost supernatural ability to read potential in other beings, a trait that had made them invaluable as teachers and mentors across the galaxy. "Over the next 4 years, you will be challenged in ways that will push the boundaries of your understanding," Dean Valexthar continued. "You will study alongside beings whose cognitive processes differ fundamentally from your own. You will learn to see the universe through perspectives shaped by millions of years of separate evolution. Some of you will excel. Others will discover that natural ability means nothing without dedication and humility." The dean activated a holographic display showing the Academy's impressive statistics. Graduation rates barely reached 60%, even among the galaxy's supposedly brightest minds. Those who did graduate often went on to positions that shaped interstellar policy and scientific advancement for generations. Your first year will focus on foundational studies. Advanced physics, xenobiology, comparative cultural analysis, and strategic thinking. Your instructors represent 17 different species, each bringing unique perspectives to their fields of expertise. The hologram shifted to show faculty profiles. Maya recognized several names from academic papers she had studied obsessively during her preparation. Academic performance will be constantly evaluated through both individual assessments and collaborative projects. You will be grouped with beings whose cognitive strengths complement your own. These partnerships are not mere academic exercises. Many of the greatest achievements in galactic history have emerged from interspecies collaboration. Maya's stomach tightened at the mention of group work. Hiding her human identity during individual study would be challenging enough. Working closely with other species over extended periods would make maintaining her carefully constructed cover story exponentially more difficult. Living arrangements have been assigned based on environmental compatibility and academic focus, the dean announced. You will find your dormitory assignments and first-week schedules in your personal data packets. Classes begin tomorrow at 0800 Standard Galactic Time. I suggest you use this evening to familiarize yourselves with the Academy's facilities and begin forming the relationships that will sustain you through the challenges ahead. As students began to disperse, Maya retrieved her data packet from one of the automated kiosks. Her assigned dormitory was in the Gamma Wing, a section designed for carbon-based species with standard atmospheric requirements. She had been paired with a roommate listed only as Tvara Zen, Violacrin Collective. The walk to her dormitory took her through corridors lined with displays showcasing the Academy's most notable achievements. Breakthrough discoveries in quantum mechanics made by a joint Zephyrian-Alteran research team. The development of universal translators by a group that included representatives from 12 different species. Peace treaties that had ended century-long conflicts, negotiated by Academy graduates who understood the subtle psychological differences between warring races. Maya paused at one display that showed a group photo from 50 years ago. The caption identified them as the research group that revolutionized stellar engineering. She studied the faces, noting the mix of species represented. No humans were visible, though she supposed that wasn't surprising given their junior status in the Federation. The Gamma Wing dormitories were designed with impressive versatility, featuring adjustable environmental controls and modular furniture that could accommodate a wide range of physiologies. Maya's room was spacious by her standards, with sleeping areas, study stations, and a shared common space. Her roommate had not yet arrived, though personal items suggested someone with highly organized habits and advanced technological preferences. Maya unpacked her few belongings, taking care to place her more sophisticated equipment where it wouldn't be immediately obvious. The quantum processor hidden in her personal tablet was far more advanced than what most species expected humans to possess. Her collection of scientific texts, if examined closely, would reveal mathematical insights that supposedly exceeded human comprehension. She had spent years acquiring these materials through careful channels, building the knowledge base she would need to compete at the Academy's level. A soft chime announced her roommate's arrival. The door slid open to reveal a being unlike any Maya had encountered before. Tvara Zen stood nearly 7 feet tall, with pale blue skin and, for arms ending in delicate, precise hands. Her large eyes showed intelligence that seemed to take in every detail of the room instantly. Most striking were the bioluminescent patterns that ran along her arms and face, markings that Maya realized must be indicators of mood, thought processes, or perhaps social status among her species. "Greetings," Tvara said in accented but precise galactic standard. "I am Tvara Zen of the Violacrin Collective's 7th Synthesis Group. Your species designation was not included in the housing information. May I inquire about your environmental and social preferences to ensure compatible cohabitation?" Maya had prepared for this moment, but actually facing it felt surreal. "I'm Maya. I'm from the Terran Independent Colonies." It wasn't technically a lie. The small independent settlements beyond Earth's direct jurisdiction maintained separate representation in certain Federation forums. Standard carbon-based requirements. I prefer quiet study environments and minimal social interaction. Tvara's bioluminescent patterns shifted to what Maya hoped was approval rather than suspicion. Excellent compatibility indicators. I also value focused academic pursuit over social complexity. My species finds individual achievement within collective advancement most satisfying. I trust this alignment will prove beneficial for both our studies. The Vulacran moved with precise, economical gestures as she arranged her belongings. Maya noticed that many of her possessions featured technology that seemed to blend seamlessly with biological components. A study tablet that appeared to be partially grown rather than manufactured. Storage containers that adjusted their internal dimensions based on contents. Even Tvara's clothing seemed to respond to her movements and mood, shifting colors and textures in subtle patterns. Your academic focus? Tvara inquired while arranging what appeared to be a small laboratory setup on her study station. Theoretical physics and applied engineering, Maya replied, staying as close to the truth as possible while remaining vague about specifics. Particularly interested in energy manipulation and propulsion systems. The bioluminescent patterns on Tvara's skin flickered in what Maya was beginning to recognize as increased interest. Fascinating convergence. My specialization involves biological engineering and adaptive systems design. The collective has tasked me with studying how various species approach problem-solving through different cognitive architectures. Perhaps we may find opportunities for collaborative study. Maya nodded politely while internally panicking. Close collaboration with someone actively studying cognitive differences between species was the last thing she needed. Her survival at the academy depended on no one looking too closely at how her mind worked compared to what they expected from her supposed species. A soft announcement echoed through their room, evening meal service is now available in the Central Commons. New students are encouraged to use this time for initial social integration and species familiarization. Tvara's patterns shifted again, and Maya was getting better at reading the subtle changes. Anticipation mixed with what might have been social anxiety. Perhaps we should attend together? Initial social integration can be challenging when cognitive processing differs significantly from galactic norms. Maya realized that her roommate was just as nervous about fitting in as she was, though for completely different reasons. The Vulacran collective apparently produced individuals who excelled at technical thinking but struggled with the broader social dynamics that came naturally to many other species. It was an unexpected point of connection, even if based on entirely different underlying concerns. The Central Commons was a massive space designed to accommodate hundreds of beings across dozens of different environmental requirements. Atmospheric zones transitioned smoothly from one section to another, allowing methane breathers to socialize adjacent to oxygen breathers without complex barrier systems. The lighting adapted constantly to provide optimal conditions for different visual systems, while acoustic dampeners prevented the more vocal species from overwhelming those with sensitive hearing. Maya followed Tvara to what appeared to be a section optimized for carbon-based species with standard environmental requirements. Tables and seating adjusted automatically as beings approached, somehow sensing appropriate configurations for their physiologies. The food distribution system offered an bewildering array of options, with nutritional information displayed in formats readable by various cognitive processing methods. The variety appears optimized for maximum species integration, Tvara observed, her patterns showing what Maya interpreted as mild overwhelm at the social complexity around them. Though I confess uncertainty about appropriate interaction protocols with such diverse cognitive architectures. Maya selected items that would provide proper nutrition without drawing attention to her specific dietary requirements. Humans needed certain nutrients that were uncommon in standard galactic food preparation, but she had brought supplements to address any deficiencies. She found herself studying the other students, trying to understand the social dynamics that were already forming. A group of Zephyrian students dominated one area, their natural size and presence making them hard to ignore. They seemed to be discussing something intensely, their crystalline skin flickering with what appeared to be rapid data exchange. At another table, several Deltan students worked on what looked like a collaborative mathematical proof, their 4 arms allowing them to manipulate complex holographic equations with startling efficiency. Cognitive diversity in action, Tvara noted, following Maya's gaze. Each species approaches information processing through fundamentally different architectures. The Zephyrians utilize distributed network thinking. Individual thoughts become part of larger collective reasoning when they interact. The Deltans employ parallel processing streams that allow simultaneous analysis of multiple complex problems. Maya nodded, filing away this information while trying to appear casually interested rather than desperately analytical. Understanding how other species thought was crucial for maintaining her cover, but she had to be careful not to seem too focused on cognitive differences. "What about humans?" she asked, hoping her tone sounded appropriately curious rather than anxious. "I haven't encountered many in academic settings." Tvara's patterns shifted to what might have been thoughtful consideration. Humans present interesting cognitive characteristics. Limited processing speed compared to most advanced species, but unusual flexibility in approach methodology. They appear capable of intuitive leaps that bypass logical progression, sometimes reaching correct conclusions through processes that other species cannot replicate or understand. Maya felt her heart rate increase, though she hoped her expression remained neutral. Tvara's description was uncomfortably accurate, highlighting exactly the kind of cognitive differences that could expose her if she wasn't careful. They also demonstrate unusual persistence in pursuing solutions that appear impossible to other species, Tvara continued. Academic literature suggests this may result from cognitive limitations that prevent them from recognizing when problems are theoretically unsolvable. Occasionally, this results in breakthrough discoveries that more logical species had dismissed as impossible. The conversation was interrupted by a commotion from across the commons. A group of students had gathered around a large holographic display that showed what appeared to be a complex mathematical challenge. Maya could see various species attempting to interact with the display, but none seemed to be making progress. "Monthly cognitive challenge," Tvara explained, her patterns showing mild interest. "Designed to test collaborative problem-solving across different mental architectures. Successful solutions often require perspectives that no single species could provide independently." Maya found herself moving toward the display before she realized what she was doing. The mathematical structure floating in the hologram was immediately familiar, a variant of the type of multidimensional optimization problems that had fascinated her since childhood. She could see several potential solution pathways, though each would require different approaches to computational thinking. "Fascinating problem architecture," she murmured, forgetting for a moment to maintain her careful persona. Her mind was already running through the mathematical relationships, seeing patterns that the assembled students seemed to be missing. Tvara's bioluminescent patterns flashed in what Maya was learning to recognize as surprise. "You perceive solution pathways? The problem has been active for 3 standard days without successful resolution." Maya realized she had made a mistake. She was supposed to be a student from a minor colony world, not someone capable of immediately grasping problems that had stumped some of the galaxy's brightest minds. But now several other students were looking at her with interest, and backing down would create a different kind of attention. "Maybe," she said carefully. "Though I'd need to work through it properly to be sure. Sometimes things look simpler than they actually are." A tall Altaïran student stepped forward, his natural magnetism making nearby metal objects hum softly. "You see pathways others have missed? What species background provides such perspective on mathematical architecture?" Maya felt trapped. The attention of multiple species was focused on her, and Tvara's patterns were shifting to what looked like intense analytical interest. Any answer she gave would be studied and remembered. Her cover identity couldn't withstand that kind of scrutiny. "Terran independent colonies," she said finally. "We've had to develop creative approaches to resource optimization. Limited technology forces you to find solutions that might not occur to species with more sophisticated tools. It was a carefully crafted response that explained unusual problem-solving approaches without claiming superior intelligence. But, as she spoke, Maya realized that her time at the academy was going to be far more dangerous than she had anticipated. Her human cognitive patterns were already drawing attention, and she had been there less than a day. The evening concluded with more social interaction than Maya had intended, as students from several species requested her contact information for potential study groups. Tvara walked back to their dormitory in thoughtful silence, her patterns cycling through what Maya hoped was normal processing rather than growing suspicion. As they prepared for sleep, Tvara finally spoke. "Tomorrow begins academic evaluation. I suspect your problem-solving approaches will prove illuminating for our instructors." Maya settled into her sleeping area with a growing sense that her carefully planned deception was already beginning to unravel. The galaxy's top academy was designed to identify and develop exceptional minds. She had come here to prove that humans belonged among the galaxy's elite thinkers. But, she was beginning to realize that hiding her true identity while demonstrating her capabilities might be impossible. The binary stars set beyond the Academy's crystalline spires, their light fading to leave the aurora dancing alone across the darkened sky. In 12 hours, Maya would attend her first classes alongside beings whose civilizations had reached the stars while humanity was still discovering fire. She would be tested, analyzed, and evaluated by some of the galaxy's finest minds. And, despite all her preparation, she was beginning to suspect that her greatest challenge wouldn't be proving she belonged at the academy. It would be hiding the fact that human cognitive abilities might exceed what any other species imagined possible. Maya's first academic day began with advanced theoretical physics, taught by Professor Kelthor, a renowned Etherian whose research had fundamentally changed understanding of quantum field manipulation. The lecture hall was designed as a spherical chamber with seating arranged in three-dimensional tiers, allowing students to observe complex holographic demonstrations from multiple angles simultaneously. As Maya took her assigned seat, she noticed that the other students represented a carefully selected mix of species known for mathematical aptitude. Zephyrians with their network processing capabilities, Deltans with parallel computational thinking, Alterans whose magnetic sensitivity gave them intuitive understanding of field interactions, and several Corvan individuals whose methane-based neural chemistry apparently excelled at abstract mathematical relationships. Professor Nexus materialized at the chamber's center, her translucent form creating subtle interference patterns in the holographic field generators. "Today we examine the fundamental limitations of faster-than-light communication," she announced, her voice carrying the harmonic resonances that made Etherian speech so distinctively beautiful. Specifically, why quantum entanglement cannot transmit information despite maintaining instantaneous correlation across galactic distances. The holographic display activated, showing two particles spinning in perfect synchronization. Maya had studied this topic extensively, but, seeing it demonstrated with the Academy's advanced equipment revealed subtleties she had never been able to observe before. The professor manipulated the display with thought-controlled interfaces, her Etherian neural patterns directly interfacing with the Academy's systems. "Miss Zen," Professor Nexus called to Maya's roommate, "please explain why measuring one particle's spin doesn't allow information transmission to its entangled partner." Tvara's bioluminescent patterns shifted as she processed the question. Measurement collapse occurs simultaneously, but the receiving party cannot distinguish between natural quantum fluctuation and intentional manipulation without classical communication channel confirmation. No information content transfers through the quantum correlation itself. "Correct reasoning, though limited perspective," the professor replied. "Mr. Krextal, how might a Zephyrian network consciousness approach this limitation differently?" The massive crystalline student's skin flickered as he consulted with his network collective. Maya watched in fascination as what appeared to be rapid data exchange occurred between him and several other Zephyrians in the chamber. Their species' ability to share thoughts in real time gave them cognitive capabilities that no individual intelligence could match. Network analysis suggests the limitation assumes individual observer consciousness, Krextal replied, his voice carrying harmonic undertones that indicated collective input. Distributed observation across multiple quantum entangled network nodes might enable information pattern recognition unavailable to singular cognitive architectures. Professor Nexus's form brightened with approval. Excellent insight. You identify how cognitive architecture affects theoretical limitations. Miss Chen, from your colonial perspective, how might resource scarcity influence approaches to this problem? Maya's heart skipped as attention focused on her. She had been hoping to remain relatively invisible during her first classes, but the professor's question demanded a response that would reveal her thinking patterns. She took a careful breath, trying to formulate an answer that would demonstrate knowledge without exposing her true cognitive capabilities. Resource limitations force focus on practical applications rather than theoretical elegance, she said slowly. Instead of trying to transmit information through entanglement directly, you might use it as a timing mechanism for prearranged classical communication. Or leverage the correlation for encryption verification rather than transmission itself. The chamber fell silent as other students processed her response. Maya realized she had made another mistake. Her suggestion demonstrated a different type of thinking than what most species would expect from her supposed background. Professor Nexus drifted closer, her ancient eyes studying Maya with unmistakable interest. Explain the encryption verification approach. Maya felt trapped. The attention of the entire class was focused on her, and, backing down now would create as many problems as continuing. She decided to proceed carefully, explaining the concept without revealing the full depth of her understanding. If you establish quantum entanglement between communication endpoints, you can use the correlation to verify that messages haven't been intercepted or altered during classical transmission. Any attempt to eavesdrop would require measuring the quantum states, which would break the entanglement and alert both parties to the security breach. The silence stretched longer this time. Maya watched as various species processed her explanation through their different cognitive architectures. The Zephyrians were flickering rapidly as their network consciousness analyzed the implications. Tfara's patterns had shifted to what Maya was learning indicated intense analytical focus. Miss Chen, Professor Nexus said finally, her voice carrying tones that Maya couldn't interpret. Your approach demonstrates insight typically associated with species possessing significantly more advanced cognitive processing capabilities. What educational resources were available in your colonial environment? Maya felt sweat beginning to form despite the chamber's perfect environmental controls. Every answer she gave seemed to dig her deeper into a hole that could expose her true identity. But, she had committed to this path, and the only option was to continue forward. Limited resources often force creative thinking, she replied, hoping her voice remained steady. When you can't rely on advanced computational aids, you have to develop intuitive approaches to complex problems. Sometimes that leads to perspectives that might not occur to someone with access to sophisticated analytical tools. Professor Nexus studied her for a long moment before moving on to other students. But, Maya could see that she had gained the professor's attention in a way that might prove problematic. Etherians were known for their ability to recognize potential in other beings, and she suspected she had just demonstrated more capability than her cover identity could safely support. The remainder of the physics lecture covered quantum field manipulation techniques that pushed the boundaries of Maya's theoretical knowledge. She found herself taking detailed notes while trying to appear appropriately challenged rather than fascinated. The other students were clearly struggling with concepts that Maya found intellectually stimulating but manageable. Her next class, Comparative Cognitive Architecture, was taught by Dr. Vorth Kellyan, a Corvin whose environmental suit was so sophisticated it appeared almost organic. Maya had been dreading this class since seeing it on her schedule, a detailed study of how different species' mental processes affected their problem-solving approaches. The classroom was arranged more traditionally, with seating designed for optimal interaction between different physiologies. Maya found herself placed between a Deltan student whose 4 arms were already preparing multiple note-taking systems and an Altaïran whose magnetic field created subtle interference in nearby electronic devices. Cognitive architecture, Dr. Kellyan began, his voice transmitted through his suit's communication system, represents the fundamental structure through which different species process information. These differences are not merely academic curiosities, they determine the boundaries of what each species considers possible, impossible, or even conceivable. The professor activated a display showing neural scan patterns from various species. Maya studied the images with growing unease as she recognized some distinctly human characteristics in brain scans labeled as unknown origin specimens. Consider the Zephyrian network consciousness, Dr. Kellyan continued. Individual thoughts become components of larger reasoning processes. They can solve certain types of problems by distributing computational load across multiple minds, but they struggle with concepts that require singular perspective or individual creativity. Several Zephyrian students flickered in what Maya interpreted as mild annoyance, but the professor continued without acknowledging their response. Deltan parallel processing allows simultaneous analysis of multiple complex variables, making them exceptional at multifaceted problems. However, they find it difficult to focus on single-variable optimization that requires excluding potentially relevant information. The Deltan student beside Maya shifted restlessly, her forearms adjusting her note-taking systems in what appeared to be frustrated agreement. Etherian consciousness operates through harmonic resonance patterns that allow intuitive understanding of complex relationships. They excel at seeing connections that escape more linear thinking, but their approach can be challenged by problems requiring strict logical progression. Maya realized that the professor was systematically analyzing the cognitive limitations of various species represented in the classroom. She dreaded what might come next. Now, we have several students from species less commonly represented in advanced academic environments, Dr. Kellyan announced, his environmental suit sensors apparently scanning the classroom. Miss Chen, representing colonial human populations, perhaps you could describe how your cognitive processes approach complex problem-solving? Maya's mouth went dry. This was exactly the type of direct analysis she had hoped to avoid. Every student in the classroom was now studying her, including several species known for their ability to detect deception or cognitive inconsistencies. Colonial environments require adaptive thinking, she said carefully. When resources are limited and technological support is minimal, you have to approach problems from multiple angles simultaneously. Sometimes that means combining approaches that might seem incompatible to more specialized thinkers. Dr. Kellyan's suit made soft processing sounds as he analyzed her response. Interesting. Can you provide a specific example of this adaptive approach? Maya felt cornered. She needed to provide an example that demonstrated human thinking without revealing capabilities that would contradict her supposed background. Her mind raced through possibilities before settling on something that might work. Resource allocation problems, she said finally. When you have multiple systems competing for limited materials, energy, and attention, you can't optimize each system independently. You have to find solutions that work across all constraints simultaneously, even if those solutions aren't optimal for any individual system. The classroom erupted in quiet discussion as various species processed this explanation. Maya could see different cognitive architectures trying to understand her approach through their own mental frameworks. Fascinating, Dr. Kellyan mused. You describe what appears to be intuitive systems thinking, approaching complex problems as integrated wholes rather than collections of separable components. This cognitive approach is typically associated with species possessing significantly more advanced neural complexity than standard human physiology supports. Maya felt her carefully constructed cover beginning to crumble. Dr. Kellyan's analysis was getting dangerously close to recognizing that her thinking patterns didn't match what galactic science expected from humans. But, admitting the truth now would create problems far beyond academic difficulty. Perhaps colonial adaptation has produced cognitive developments not reflected in standard species assessments, she suggested, hoping to redirect the analysis toward environmental factors rather than biological capabilities. Tfara's bioluminescent patterns were cycling rapidly, and Maya realized her roommate was analyzing every word of their exchange. The Vuelakrin's stated interest in studying different cognitive architectures made her observations particularly dangerous. Environmental cognitive adaptation is certainly documented, Dr. Kellyan acknowledged. Though the degree of development you describe would represent remarkable evolutionary acceleration. Such changes typically require thousands of generations to become established genetic characteristics. Maya realized she had backed herself into a corner that required either admitting deception or claiming human cognitive evolution far beyond what Federation science considered possible. Either option would result in investigations she couldn't survive. Maybe it's not evolution, she said desperately. Maybe it's just that isolated populations develop different problem-solving cultures. When you can't rely on established solutions, you have to develop new approaches. The explanation sounded weak even to her own ears, but Dr. Kellyan seemed to accept it as a working hypothesis. Cultural cognitive development is indeed a fascinating research area. Perhaps we might arrange for more detailed analysis of your problem-solving approaches as part of our ongoing research into cognitive architecture variation. Maya's heart sank. The professor's interest was exactly what she had hoped to avoid. Detailed analysis of her thinking patterns would inevitably reveal that human cognitive capabilities exceeded Federation expectations by enormous margins. The remainder of the class focused on theoretical frameworks for understanding cognitive differences, but Maya found it difficult to concentrate. She had been at the academy less than 2 days, and already multiple professors had identified her as worthy of special attention. Her plan to blend in and demonstrate average capability was failing catastrophically. Lunch break provided temporary respite from academic scrutiny, though the social dynamics in the Central Commons presented their own challenges. Maya selected a quiet table in a section optimized for carbon-based species, hoping to avoid further attention. Tvara joined her, along with several other students from their morning classes. "Your problem-solving approaches prove most intriguing," Tvara said as she arranged her meal with precise, economical movements. The collective would find great value in studying how colonial isolation produces cognitive adaptation. Maya tried to appear flattered rather than terrified by the suggestion. "I'm not sure there's anything particularly special about it. When you have limited options, you just have to be creative." The Deltan student from their cognitive architecture class leaned forward, her 4 arms allowing her to continue eating while maintaining conversation. Creativity implies generation of novel solutions beyond logical extension of known principles. Standard human cognitive architecture typically demonstrates creativity within limited domains rather than the systematic approach you described. Maya realized that her attempts to downplay her abilities were being undermined by other students' knowledge of human limitations. The Federation's assessment of human capabilities was apparently well-established academic knowledge, making her demonstrated abilities impossible to explain through normal variation. "Perhaps colonial humans developed differently," suggested Krextal, the Zephyrian student whose network consciousness apparently found the cognitive mystery intellectually stimulating. Isolation from standard human populations might produce emergent cognitive characteristics. Maya nodded gratefully, hoping that speculation about colonial development might provide cover for her unusual capabilities. "That's possible. We do approach problems differently than Earth-based populations from what I understand." "Fascinating research opportunity," Tvara observed, her patterns showing increased interest. Comparative analysis between colonial and standard human cognitive architectures could provide insights into environmental versus genetic factors in intelligence development. The conversation was interrupted by an announcement that afternoon laboratories were beginning. Maya's schedule showed advanced engineering applications with Professor Tak van Mossel, a Corvin whose research in applied physics had produced several revolutionary technologies currently used throughout the Federation. The engineering laboratory was a vast space filled with sophisticated fabrication equipment, holographic design systems, and testing chambers capable of simulating extreme environmental conditions. Students were arranged in small groups, each assigned to work on a practical problem requiring both theoretical understanding and hands-on implementation. Maya found herself grouped with Tvara, a Zephyrian named Hextor whose individual consciousness seemed less network-dependent than Krextal, and a Deltan called Quinsera whose parallel processing capabilities made her exceptionally suited to complex technical challenges. Their assignment involved designing a power distribution system for a theoretical space station operating in a high-radiation environment. Professor Mosul drifted between groups in his sophisticated environmental suit, observing student approaches and offering guidance when requested. Maya watched other teams beginning their work, noting how different cognitive architectures approached the same problem through fundamentally different methodologies. The Zephyrians immediately began network consultation, their collective consciousness analyzing the problem through distributed processing. The Deltans started parallel analysis tracks, simultaneously considering power generation, distribution efficiency, radiation shielding, and safety protocols. A group of Etherians approached the problem through harmonic analysis, seeking elegant solutions that balanced multiple variables through intuitive optimization. Initial analysis suggests 17 primary constraint variables, Quinsera announced, her 4 arms already manipulating holographic displays showing different aspects of the problem. Parallel optimization across all parameters indicates approximately 247,000 possible configuration combinations. Hextor's crystalline skin flickered as he processed the information. Network consultation recommends systematic elimination of suboptimal solutions through collaborative filtering. Estimated analysis time, 4.6 standard hours. Tfara's patterns showed analytical focus as she examined the problem through her species' biological engineering perspective. Biological adaptive systems suggest organic approach to power distribution. Rather than optimizing static configuration, design system that adapts distribution patterns based on real-time environmental conditions. Maya listened to her teammates' approaches while studying the problem herself. She could see immediately that their methodologies, while sophisticated, were approaching the challenge through unnecessarily complex frameworks. The solution pattern was elegant in its simplicity, but explaining it would require revealing thinking processes that her supposed background couldn't support. What approach does colonial engineering suggest? Tfara asked, her bioluminescent patterns indicating genuine curiosity about Maya's perspective. Maya realized she had to contribute meaningfully to avoid appearing incompetent, but she needed to frame her insights in a way that seemed consistent with resource-limited thinking rather than superior analytical capability. When you have limited materials and manufacturing capability, you have to design systems that are simple but flexible, she said carefully. Instead of trying to optimize for every possible condition, you create modular systems that can be reconfigured as needed. She activated the group's holographic design interface, her hands moving almost automatically to sketch a power distribution framework that incorporated adaptive routing, redundant pathways, and modular components that could be manufactured with basic industrial equipment. The design took shape in the holographic display with startling elegance. Maya had unconsciously incorporated mathematical principles that optimized for multiple variables simultaneously while maintaining manufacturing simplicity. As she worked, she became absorbed in the problem, her natural engineering instincts overriding her careful attempts to appear limited. Configuration optimization appears remarkably sophisticated, Quinsera observed, her parallel processing capabilities analyzing Maya's design in real time. Mathematical relationships demonstrate multidimensional optimization that typically requires advanced computational assistance. Hextor's crystalline surface was flickering rapidly as he processed the implications of Maya's work. Design framework incorporates principles that network analysis identifies as beyond typical individual cognitive capability. Consultation with collective consciousness recommends detailed analysis of construction methodology. Maya realized she had made another serious mistake. Her engineering design was demonstrating capabilities that her cover identity couldn't explain. But, backing down now would create as many problems as continuing forward. It's just practical thinking, she said, hoping her voice sounded more confident than she felt. When you can't rely on complex manufacturing processes, you have to find simple solutions that work reliably. Tfara's patterns had shifted to what Maya was learning indicated intense analytical interest. Simplicity that incorporates such sophisticated optimization requires cognitive processes significantly more advanced than standard human capability assessments suggest. Before Maya could respond, Professor Mosul approached their group. His environmental suit's sensors studied their holographic design for several moments before he spoke. "Miss Chen, please explain the mathematical principles underlying your modular optimization framework." Maya felt trapped again. The professor's question required her to articulate the mathematical reasoning behind her design, which would inevitably reveal cognitive capabilities far beyond what her supposed background could support. But, refusing to explain would appear equally suspicious. The optimization emerges from treating the system as an organic whole rather than separate components, she said, trying to frame her explanation in terms that might seem consistent with limited technical resources. Instead of optimizing each subsystem independently, you look for solutions that create beneficial interactions between different parts of the system. Professor Mosul's suit made processing sounds as he analyzed her explanation. Demonstrate the mathematical relationships that produce this emergent optimization. Maya's hands moved to the holographic interface, almost without conscious direction. Her mathematical intuition took over as she began displaying the underlying equations that governed her design. Variables flowed across the display, showing how power distribution efficiency increased through resonant interactions between modular components, how redundancy pathways created stability margins that exceeded the sum of individual component reliabilities, how adaptive routing algorithms minimized energy losses while maximizing system flexibility. As she worked, Maya became dimly aware that the laboratory had grown quiet. Other student groups had stopped their work to observe her mathematical demonstration. Professor Mosul's environmental suit was making sounds she hadn't heard before, suggesting analytical processes running beyond his normal operational parameters. When she finally stopped and looked around, Maya realized that every being in the laboratory was staring at her. The mathematical framework she had displayed represented optimization thinking far beyond what any individual species was supposed to achieve independently. Her demonstration had revealed problem-solving capabilities that contradicted everything the Federation thought it knew about human cognitive limitations. Professor Mosul spoke finally, his voice carrying tones that Maya couldn't interpret. "Miss Chen, your mathematical analysis demonstrates cognitive processing capabilities that appear fundamentally inconsistent with established human physiological constraints. Perhaps you could explain how colonial development produced such remarkable analytical advancement?" Maya felt her carefully constructed deception finally crumbling completely. Every eye in the laboratory was focused on her, including Professor Mosul, whose ancient experience undoubtedly included enough interaction with humans to recognize when something didn't match established patterns. She had come to the academy to prove that humans belonged among the galaxy's elite thinkers. But, in trying to hide her true identity while demonstrating her capabilities, she had created a mystery that demanded investigation. Her secret was about to be exposed, and she had no idea what consequences that revelation might bring. Maya stood frozen in the engineering laboratory as dozens of the galaxy's brightest minds stared at her mathematical demonstration. The silence stretched until Professor Mosul finally spoke, his environmental suit's communication system carrying undertones that suggested deep analytical processing. "Miss Chen, I believe we need to schedule a private consultation to discuss your academic background in greater detail," the professor said. "Your demonstrated capabilities require clarification." Maya nodded mutely, knowing that her time at the academy had reached a critical juncture. She had successfully proven that humans possessed cognitive abilities far exceeding Federation expectations, but, in doing so, she had destroyed any possibility of maintaining her carefully constructed cover identity. As other students gradually returned to their own projects, Maya's teammates remained focused on her with expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. Tfara's bioluminescent patterns were cycling through configurations Maya hadn't seen before, suggesting analytical processes running beyond normal parameters. Your problem-solving methodology demonstrates characteristics that appear inconsistent with known colonial human development patterns, Tvara said quietly, her forearms arranging her equipment with precise, economical movements. The collective's database contains extensive information about human cognitive capabilities. Your demonstrated abilities suggest either remarkable evolutionary advancement or... She left the sentence unfinished, but Maya understood the implication. Tvara was beginning to suspect that Maya's identity wasn't what she claimed. The remainder of the laboratory session passed in uncomfortable tension. Maya tried to participate in her group's work without drawing further attention, but her teammates continued studying her with analytical interest that made concentration difficult. When the session finally ended, Professor Mosul approached their workstation. "Miss Chen, please remain after class. I believe we have much to discuss." Other students filed out of the laboratory, many casting curious glances at Maya as they departed. Her teammates hesitated before leaving, Tvara's patterns suggesting internal conflict about whether to stay or go. "I'll see you at our dormitory," Tvara said finally, though her tone carried implications Maya found unsettling. The Vulacran's stated interest in cognitive architecture research made her observations particularly dangerous. When the laboratory was empty except for Maya and Professor Mosul, the ancient Corvin moved his environmental suit closer to the workstation where her mathematical demonstration still glowed in the holographic display. "In 6 centuries of teaching at this academy," Professor Mosul began, "I have encountered thousands of students representing every major species in the Federation. Each species possesses characteristic cognitive patterns that remain consistent across individuals, regardless of environmental variation or educational background." Maya remained silent, knowing that anything she said would only deepen her predicament. "Your demonstrated mathematical analysis incorporates optimization principles that typically require either sophisticated computational assistance or cognitive processing capabilities significantly more advanced than Federation science attributes to baseline human physiology," the professor continued. "Colonial development might explain modest variation from established norms, but not advancement of this magnitude." The professor paused, his suit sensors apparently studying Maya's biometric responses. "You have 2 options, Miss Chen. You may explain how your supposed background produced such remarkable capabilities, or you may tell me who you really are." Maya felt her heart rate accelerating despite her attempts to remain calm. She had known this moment would come eventually, but she hadn't expected it to arrive so quickly or so dramatically. "I am human," she said finally, deciding that partial truth might be safer than continued deception. "But not from the Terran independent colonies." Professor Mosul's suit made soft processing sounds. "Continue." "I'm from Earth. Sol System. Core human territories." Maya took a deep breath before continuing. "I falsified my application to hide my true origin." Why would a core system human need to disguise their identity to attend this academy? Professor Mosul asked, though his tone suggested he was beginning to understand the implications. Maya realized that she had reached a point where complete honesty was her only remaining option. Because humans aren't supposed to be capable of succeeding here. Federation assessment protocols classify us as intelligent but limited. Our applications are typically rejected before serious consideration. The laboratory fell silent as Professor Mosul processed this revelation. Maya could hear the soft hum of environmental systems and the distant sounds of other classes continuing their work. "You're suggesting that Federation assessment of human cognitive capabilities is fundamentally inaccurate?" Professor Mosul asked finally. "I'm suggesting that those assessments were made before humans had opportunity to demonstrate their full potential," Maya replied. "When the Federation first encountered Earth, we had barely achieved space flight. Our technology was primitive, our scientific understanding limited. But that was only 2 centuries ago. Human development accelerates rapidly when given appropriate resources and challenges." Professor Mosul's environmental suit hummed with increased activity as he analyzed her explanation. Your demonstrated mathematical capabilities certainly support the hypothesis that human potential has been significantly underestimated. The optimization framework you developed represents thinking typically associated with species possessing cognitive architectures far more sophisticated than current human classifications suggest. Maya nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension at finally being able to discuss her true capabilities honestly. Humans think differently than most Federation species. We don't have the Zephyrian network consciousness or Deltan parallel processing, but we have something else. Flexibility. Adaptability. The ability to approach problems from multiple perspectives simultaneously and find solutions that more specialized thinkers might miss. Interesting hypothesis, Professor Mosul mused. Though it raises questions about why human representatives to the Federation haven't demonstrated such capabilities in official interactions. Maya had anticipated this question during her preparation for the Academy. Because they're not looking for them. Federation interactions with humanity focus on established protocols and conventional approaches. Representatives are selected for diplomatic skills and political reliability, not innovative thinking. The humans who might demonstrate advanced capabilities are working on Earth's internal development projects, not interstellar diplomacy. Professor Mosul moved to the laboratory's main data terminal, his environmental suit interfacing directly with the Academy's information systems. Your academic records indicate consistent excellence across all subjects, with particular strength in theoretical mathematics and applied engineering. These achievements occurred despite the inherent disadvantages of working with equipment and resources designed for your supposed colonial background. I had help, Maya admitted. There are humans on Earth who have been working to develop our capabilities beyond what the Federation expects. They provided me with advanced materials and training, though I had to be careful about revealing how sophisticated they really were. The professor's suit processed this information while he accessed additional data files. I'm reviewing comparative analysis between your demonstrated capabilities and established benchmarks for various Federation species. Your mathematical optimization framework shows characteristics typically associated with Etherian harmonic analysis, while your engineering approach demonstrates Vulacran biological systems thinking. However, the synthesis of these methodologies appears uniquely human. Maya felt a surge of pride despite her precarious situation. That's what I came here to prove. Humans don't think like any other species in the Federation. We combine approaches that other species consider incompatible. We find solutions that more specialized thinkers dismiss as impossible. A remarkable claim that your work certainly supports, Professor Mosul acknowledged. However, your deception creates significant complications. Academic fraud is grounds for immediate expulsion and potential legal consequences. Maya's brief moment of optimism evaporated. She had known the risks when she decided to falsify her application, but actually facing the consequences felt surreal. I understand, she said quietly. Though I hope you'll consider that I only use deception to gain opportunity to demonstrate my actual capabilities. Everything I've done academically has been authentic. Professor Mosul's suit made contemplative sounds as he continued processing the situation. Your case presents unprecedented circumstances that require consultation with Academy administration. However, I'm more interested in the broader implications of your revelations than immediate disciplinary action. Maya looked up, sensing a possibility she hadn't expected. If your claims about human cognitive capabilities are accurate, Professor Mosul continued, then, the Federation has made a serious error in its assessment of your species' potential. Such mistakes have historically led to significant problems in interstellar relations. The professor activated a holographic communication interface, his suit systems establishing contact with what appeared to be Dean Valexthar's office. Maya watched nervously as the ancient Etherian's translucent form materialized in the display. Dean Valexthar, I have a student situation that requires your immediate attention, Professor Mosul began. Miss Chen has revealed information that potentially affects Federation policy regarding human cognitive assessment. The dean's energy patterns shifted as he focused on the communication. Professor Mosul, please explain the nature of this situation. Miss Chen has demonstrated mathematical and engineering capabilities far exceeding established human cognitive baselines. She has also admitted to falsifying her application to gain admission under an identity that wouldn't be subject to species-based admission restrictions. Maya watched the dean's reaction carefully, trying to read his energy patterns for clues about his response to this revelation. Etherians were known for their ability to see potential in other beings, but they were also committed to academic integrity. Miss Chen, Dean Valexthar said, his ancient voice carrying harmonic undertones that suggested deep analytical processing, you present us with a complex situation that requires careful consideration. Please join Professor Mosul and myself in my office immediately. The communication ended, leaving Maya alone with Professor Mosul as they prepared to face the Academy's administration. As they walked through the crystalline corridors toward the dean's office, Maya tried to prepare for what might be the end of her academic career or the beginning of something far more significant. Dean Valexthar's office occupied the highest spire of the Academy's central tower, its transparent walls providing panoramic views of the planet's perpetual aurora. The dean materialized behind his desk as Maya and Professor Mosul entered, his Etherian form creating subtle interference patterns in the room's advanced holographic systems. Miss Chen, the dean began, his voice carrying harmonic resonances that seemed to analyze her biometric responses. Professor Mosul has informed me that you have been less than truthful about your background. Please explain your deception and its motivations. Maya took a deep breath, knowing that her response would determine her future at the Academy and, possibly humanity's relationship with the Federation. I falsified my application because humans aren't given fair consideration for admission to advanced academic institutions. Federation assessment protocols classify us as intelligent but limited, suitable for basic functions but not sophisticated intellectual work. Dean Valexthar's energy patterns shifted as he processed her explanation. You claim that Federation assessment of human capabilities is inaccurate? I claim that those assessments were made when humanity was still developing its potential, Maya replied. We've advanced significantly since first contact, but Federation policy hasn't adjusted to recognize that advancement. The dean moved to his office's central holographic display, activating files that showed comparative cognitive assessments for various Federation species. Maya could see human classifications listed among species considered suitable for manual labor, basic engineering, and limited administrative functions. Current classifications are based on extensive testing conducted over the past 2 centuries, Dean Valexthar noted. Human representatives have consistently performed within expected parameters during official evaluations. Because those evaluations test for specific types of thinking that don't represent human cognitive strengths, Maya said, surprising herself with her boldness in challenging galactic policy. Humans don't process information like Zephyrians or Deltans or Etherians. We think in ways that Federation testing protocols weren't designed to measure. Professor Mosul's environmental suit hummed as he accessed additional files. Dean Valexthar, Miss Chen's demonstrated capabilities certainly support her claims. Her mathematical optimization work represents synthesis thinking that incorporates multiple cognitive approaches simultaneously. This suggests human mental architecture may be more sophisticated than current assessments indicate. Dean Valexthar studied the holographic records of Maya's academic work, his energy patterns cycling through configurations that suggested intense analytical processing. Miss Chen, assuming your claims about human cognitive capabilities are accurate, why haven't other members of your species demonstrated such abilities in Federation interactions? Maya had spent considerable time thinking about this question during her preparation. Because the Federation doesn't look for them. Human representatives are selected for diplomatic compatibility and political reliability. The humans who might demonstrate advanced capabilities are working on internal development projects that the Federation doesn't monitor. The dean's form brightened as he accessed additional data files. Professor Mosul, what is your professional assessment of Miss Chen's cognitive capabilities relative to other species represented at this academy? Professor Mosel's suit processed the question for several moments before responding. Her demonstrated mathematical analysis shows sophistication comparable to advanced Etherian students, while her engineering approach incorporates biological systems thinking typically associated with Violacrine cognitive architecture. The synthesis of these methodologies appears to represent a unique human cognitive framework that current Federation classifications don't account for. Maya watched Dean Valexthar's energy patterns shift as he processed this assessment. The ancient Etherian was known for his ability to recognize potential in other beings, and she hoped that his evaluation would support Professor Mosel's conclusions. "Miss Chen," the dean said finally, "your situation presents unprecedented circumstances. Academic fraud typically results in immediate expulsion, but your case involves potential implications for Federation policy regarding an entire species." Maya felt her heart racing as she waited for the dean's decision. However, Dean Valexthar continued, "Your demonstrated academic performance has been exceptional, and your deception appears motivated by desire for educational opportunity rather than malicious intent. I am prepared to offer you a choice." The dean activated his holographic display, showing what appeared to be official Federation communication channels. "You may accept expulsion for academic fraud and return to Earth with your deception unexposed. Alternatively, you may remain at the Academy as a test case for human cognitive potential, with the understanding that your performance will be closely monitored and potentially used to reassess Federation policy regarding human intellectual capabilities." Maya stared at the dean, hardly believing what she was hearing. Instead of expulsion, she was being offered the opportunity to serve as a representative for her entire species' potential. "If you choose to remain," Dean Valexthar added, "your true identity will be revealed to the Academy community. You will be studied as an example of human cognitive development, and your academic performance will influence Federation assessment of your species' educational and professional potential." Maya realized that accepting this offer would transform her from a deceptive student trying to hide her capabilities into an official representative of human potential. The weight of that responsibility was staggering. "Dean Valexthar," she said carefully, "what would happen if I fail to meet expectations?" The ancient Etherian's energy pattern suggested what might have been amusement. "Miss Chen, you have already exceeded expectations significantly. Your mathematical work demonstrates optimization thinking that rivals graduate-level research, and your engineering solutions show innovation that suggests remarkable creative potential." Professor Mosel's suit hummed with what Maya interpreted as agreement. "Your cognitive flexibility appears to be your species' greatest advantage. While other species excel at specific types of thinking, humans seem capable of synthesizing multiple approaches simultaneously." Maya looked out through the dean's transparent walls at the Academy's crystalline spires stretching toward the binary stars. She had come here hoping to prove that humans deserved recognition as intellectual equals to other Federation species. Now she was being offered the chance to make that case officially, with her performance potentially affecting how the entire galaxy viewed human potential. "I accept," she said finally. "I'll stay and represent human capabilities as fairly as I can." Dean Valexthar's energy patterns brightened with what Maya hoped was approval. "Excellent. Professor Mosel, please prepare a comprehensive analysis of Miss Chen's cognitive abilities for submission to the Federation Educational Assessment Board. We'll need detailed documentation to support any policy recommendations that emerge from this case." As the meeting concluded and Maya prepared to leave the dean's office, she realized that her secret was about to become public knowledge throughout the Academy. Her carefully planned deception had evolved into an official test of human intellectual potential, with consequences that could reshape humanity's place in the galactic community. The announcement of Maya's true identity sent ripples of shock and fascination throughout Nexus Prime Academy. Within hours of Dean Valexthar's official statement, every student, professor, and administrative being on the campus knew that a human had been attending classes under false pretenses and demonstrating cognitive capabilities that contradicted everything the Federation thought it knew about her species. Maya walked through the Academy's corridors the morning after her revelation, acutely aware of the attention she was receiving. Conversations stopped as she passed, with beings from dozens of different species studying her with expressions ranging from scientific curiosity to skeptical suspicion. Some seemed fascinated by the implications of her presence, while others appeared offended by her deception. Her first class of the day was comparative xenobiology with Dr. Senth Correal, a Deltan whose 4 arms allowed her to manipulate multiple holographic displays simultaneously while lecturing. Maya arrived early, hoping to claim a seat where she might be less conspicuous, but found that anonymity was no longer possible. "Miss Chen," Dr. Correal announced as Maya entered the lecture hall, or should I say, Miss Chen of Earth. "Your presence in this class has taken on new significance given recent revelations about your background." Every student in the hall turned to stare at Maya as she made her way to an empty seat. She could see various species processing the implications of having a human among them, a representative of a species they had considered intellectually limited now proven capable of academic work at the galaxy's most prestigious institution. Today's discussion focuses on cognitive evolution in response to environmental pressures, Dr. Correal continued, her 4 arms arranging holographic displays showing neural development patterns across different species. Miss Chen's case provides an unexpected real-time example of this phenomenon. Maya felt her stomach tighten as she realized she was about to become a case study in her own xenobiology class. Traditional Federation assessment classified human cognitive architecture as limited but functional, Dr. Correal explained, one of her arms manipulating a display showing human brain scans alongside other species. However, Miss Chen's demonstrated capabilities suggest either remarkable individual variation or systematic underestimation of human potential. A Zephyrian student named Vexkill raised what might have been considered a hand, his crystalline surface flickering with network consultation activity. Network analysis suggests environmental pressure hypothesis. Humans achieved space flight recently compared to established Federation species. Rapid technological advancement might produce accelerated cognitive development. Dr. Correal's secondary arms continued manipulating data displays while her primary arms gestured toward Maya. "Miss Chen, from your perspective as a member of the species in question, how accurate is current Federation assessment of human cognitive capabilities?" Maya had spent the previous evening preparing for exactly these types of questions. Dean Valexthar had made it clear that her academic performance would be scrutinized as evidence of human potential, making every class interaction a potential factor in reshaping galactic policy. Current assessments are based on early contact when humanity was still developing our technological foundation, Maya replied carefully. They don't account for how rapidly humans adapt to new challenges when given appropriate resources and educational opportunities. A Violacrin student Maya recognized from advanced mathematics courses interjected, her bioluminescent patterns showing analytical interest. Adaptation implies modification of existing cognitive architecture rather than expression of hidden potential. Which hypothesis better explains your demonstrated capabilities? Maya considered the question carefully. The distinction between adaptation and hidden potential could affect how the Federation approached future human development initiatives. Both factors probably contribute, she said finally. Humans have always possessed the cognitive flexibility I've demonstrated, but we haven't had access to the educational resources and intellectual challenges that allow that flexibility to fully develop. Rapid technological advancement over the past 2 centuries has provided the foundation for expressing capabilities that were always present but underdeveloped. Dr. Correal's multiple arms were taking notes while maintaining her lecture materials and student interaction. Fascinating hypothesis. You suggest that human cognitive potential has remained constant while educational and technological infrastructure has advanced to support expression of that potential. That's part of it, Maya agreed. But, I also think humans process information differently than most Federation species in ways that standard assessment protocols aren't designed to measure. We excel at synthesis thinking, combining approaches that other species might consider incompatible to find solutions that specialized thinkers could miss. The lecture hall buzzed with quiet discussion as various species processed Maya's explanation through their different cognitive frameworks. She could see Zephyrians flickering as their network consciousness analyzed her claims, while Deltans appeared to be running parallel processing evaluations of her hypothesis. Ms. Chen raises important questions about the adequacy of current Federation cognitive assessment methodologies, Dr. Correal observed. Perhaps our evaluation protocols are optimized for recognizing cognitive patterns similar to those of the species that developed them, rather than identifying alternative forms of intelligence. A Corvin student whose environmental suit made him appear almost ghostly spoke up, his voice transmitted through advanced communication systems. Environmental suit analysis suggests potential systematic bias in Federation assessment protocols. Current methodologies evaluate cognitive capability through frameworks developed by species with established galactic presence. Alternative cognitive architectures might be dismissed as inferior rather than different. Maya felt a surge of gratitude toward the Corvin student for articulating something she had been trying to express diplomatically. Federation bias against newer species wasn't intentional malice, but it was limiting their ability to recognize diverse forms of intelligence. That's exactly right, Maya said, feeling more confident about expressing her perspective. Humans think differently, not worse. We approach problems through cognitive pathways that might seem inefficient to species with more specialized mental architectures, but that flexibility allows us to find solutions others miss. Dr. Correal paused her multiple data manipulations to focus entirely on Maya. Provide a specific example of this cognitive flexibility in action. Maya thought back to her engineering laboratory demonstration that had exposed her true identity. The power distribution system I designed yesterday incorporated optimization principles from multiple disciplines simultaneously. I approached the problem through mechanical engineering, biological systems theory, and mathematical optimization at the same time, finding solutions that emerged from the intersection of those approaches. Remarkable, Dr. Correal mused. Most species excel at single-discipline thinking but struggle with interdisciplinary synthesis. You describe cognitive processes that operate across multiple specialized domains simultaneously. A Deltan student raised 2 of her 4 arms to indicate a question. Parallel processing capabilities allow simultaneous analysis across multiple variables, but maintaining coherent synthesis across fundamentally different analytical frameworks represents cognitive architecture significantly more sophisticated than Federation assessment suggested possible for humans. Maya realized that her explanation was reinforcing the conclusion that human cognitive capabilities exceeded Federation expectations by enormous margins. Every question seemed to reveal additional aspects of human thinking that contradicted established assessments. The remainder of the xenobiology lecture focused on the broader implications of cognitive diversity for Federation policy and interspecies relations. Maya found herself functioning as both student and primary case study, her responses contributing to academic discussion that could influence how the galaxy understood human potential. Her next class, Strategic Analysis with Commander Thek Viralis, proved even more challenging. The legendary Alta'iran military strategist had spent centuries studying how different species approached tactical and strategic thinking, developing frameworks that had revolutionized interstellar military doctrine. The classroom was arranged as a sophisticated strategic simulation chamber, with holographic displays capable of showing complex three-dimensional battlefields and resource management scenarios. Students were seated in positions that allowed optimal viewing of tactical demonstrations while facilitating interaction between different physiologies. Commander Viralis's magnetic presence was even more impressive in person than Maya had expected. The Altaran's natural electromagnetic field caused subtle interference in nearby electronic systems, while his bearing suggested confidence built through centuries of successful military leadership. Today we examine strategic thinking across different cognitive architectures, Commander Viralis announced, his voice carrying the authoritative tones that made Altarans natural military leaders. Ms. Chen's recent revelations provide opportunity to explore how human strategic thinking differs from established Federation approaches. Maya felt nervous attention from every student in the chamber. Strategic analysis was one of the most demanding subjects at the Academy, requiring synthesis of enormous amounts of information under pressure while accounting for the psychological and cognitive characteristics of multiple species. Miss Chen, Commander Viralis continued, please join me at the primary tactical display. You will serve as human representative in today's strategic simulation. Maya approached the tactical display with growing apprehension. The holographic battlefield showed a complex scenario involving multiple species with different technological capabilities, environmental requirements, and strategic preferences. She could see immediately that the scenario was designed to test her ability to account for diverse cognitive approaches while developing coherent strategic responses. Scenario parameters, Commander Viralis announced, his electromagnetic field causing the holographic display to flicker slightly. Multi-species alliance facing coordinated attack by hostile coalition. Alliance forces include Zephyrian Network Consciousness Units, Deltan Parallel Processing Tactical Groups, and Etherian Harmonic Coordination Elements. Enemy coalition demonstrates adaptive tactical thinking that suggests unknown cognitive architecture. Maya studied the tactical display, her mind automatically analyzing force deployments, resource distributions, and strategic objectives. The scenario was fiendishly complex, requiring coordination between alliance forces whose cognitive differences could easily lead to conflicting strategic approaches. Miss Chen, you will serve as Alliance Strategic Coordinator, Commander Viralis explained. Your challenge is to develop unified tactical approach that leverages each species' cognitive strengths while minimizing the weaknesses that arise from their different thinking patterns. Maya felt dozens of eyes studying her as she began analyzing the scenario. This was exactly the type of challenge that could demonstrate human strategic thinking capabilities, but failure would reinforce skepticism about her species' intellectual potential. She began by identifying the core strategic challenge, coordinating forces that thought in fundamentally different ways. Zephyrian Network Consciousness excelled at distributed tactical processing but struggled with individual initiative. Deltan Parallel Processing allowed simultaneous analysis of multiple tactical variables but could lead to decision paralysis when optimal choices weren't clear. Etherian Harmonic Coordination produced elegant strategic solutions but required time for consensus that might not be available in rapidly changing tactical situations. Initial analysis suggests the enemy coalition's adaptive tactics are designed to exploit cognitive differences between alliance species, Maya announced, manipulating the holographic display to highlight enemy movement patterns. They're using rapid tactical shifts that force each alliance species to rely on cognitive approaches that work against coordination. Commander Viralis nodded approvingly. Continue your analysis. Maya studied the enemy tactical patterns more closely, recognizing something that sent a chill down her spine. The enemy adaptive thinking shows characteristics similar to human cognitive flexibility. They're synthesizing multiple tactical approaches simultaneously, switching between strategies faster than specialized thinkers can analyze and respond to. The simulation chamber fell silent as students processed the implications of Maya's observation. If the enemy forces demonstrated human-like cognitive flexibility, traditional Federation tactical doctrine might be inadequate for defending against them. Strategic recommendation? Commander Viralis prompted. Maya took a deep breath before responding. Alliance forces need to match the enemy's cognitive flexibility. Instead of relying on each species' specialized strengths, we need to create mixed tactical units that combine different cognitive approaches within individual operational groups. She began manipulating the holographic display to show her proposed force restructuring. Instead of traditional single-species tactical units, she created mixed groups that paired Zephyrian network processing with Deltan parallel analysis and Etherian harmonic coordination. Mixed cognitive tactical groups allow rapid adaptation to enemy strategic shifts while maintaining the specialized advantages each species provides, Maya explained. Zephyrian network consciousness can process distributed intelligence, Deltan parallel processing can analyze multiple tactical options simultaneously, and Etherian harmonic coordination can identify elegant solutions that leverage both approaches. Commander Viralis studied her tactical reorganization with growing interest. Demonstrate the effectiveness of your mixed cognitive approach against enemy adaptive tactics. Maya activated the simulation, watching as her mixed tactical groups engaged the enemy coalition. The results were dramatic. Instead of being forced into cognitive patterns that worked against coordination, alliance forces could adapt their thinking approaches to match enemy tactical shifts. Remarkable strategic innovation, Commander Viralis observed as the simulation showed alliance forces systematically outmaneuvering the previously adaptive enemy coalition. Your approach leverages cognitive diversity as tactical advantage rather than operational challenge. Maya felt a surge of satisfaction as she watched her strategic framework succeed against the complex scenario. But, more importantly, she realized she had demonstrated something crucial about human strategic thinking, the ability to synthesize different cognitive approaches into frameworks that exceeded the effectiveness of any single specialized approach. Ms. Chen, your strategic analysis demonstrates cognitive flexibility that represents significant advancement beyond current Federation understanding of human capabilities, Commander Viralis announced to the entire chamber. Your approach to multi-species coordination could revolutionize Alliance tactical doctrine. The implications of this statement weren't lost on Maya or her fellow students. If human strategic thinking could improve Federation military effectiveness, it would necessitate fundamental reassessment of humanity's role in galactic security. That evening, Maya returned to her dormitory to find Tvara waiting with expressions of intense analytical interest and, what might have been concern. Her roommate's bioluminescent patterns were cycling through configurations Maya had learned indicated complex emotional processing. The collective has been analyzing your revealed capabilities through reports from today's classes, Tvara said, her forearms arranging her study materials with precise, economical movements. Initial assessment suggests human cognitive architecture may represent evolutionary development that other species have not achieved. Maya settled into her study station, feeling exhausted by the constant scrutiny her presence now attracted. I'm just doing my best to represent human capabilities fairly. Though I'm starting to realize the implications might be bigger than I anticipated. Tvara's patterns shifted to what Maya interpreted as serious analytical focus. Ms. Chen, the collective's preliminary analysis suggests that human cognitive flexibility could provide solutions to long-standing problems in Federation science and policy. However, such capabilities also raise questions about potential strategic advantages that could affect interspecies balance. Maya looked up from her study materials, recognizing the concern in Tvara's statement. Are you worried that recognizing human capabilities might threaten other species' positions in the Federation? The concern is more complex, Tvara replied carefully. If humans possess cognitive advantages that enable superior performance across multiple disciplines, traditional Federation approaches to interspecies collaboration and resource allocation might require fundamental revision. Maya realized that her presence at the Academy had implications far beyond proving human intellectual capabilities. If her performance suggested that humans could excel in areas where other species had established expertise, it could reshape the entire structure of galactic civilization. Tvara, Maya said carefully, what do you think the collective's recommendation will be regarding my case? Her roommate's bioluminescent patterns flickered as she processed the question. The collective values cognitive diversity and scientific advancement above political considerations. However, sudden recognition of previously underestimated capabilities in any species creates instability that affects all Federation members. Maya spent the remainder of the evening studying for upcoming examinations while contemplating the broader implications of her situation. She had come to the Academy hoping to prove that humans deserved recognition as intellectual equals to other Federation species. But, her performance was suggesting that human cognitive capabilities might exceed those of most galactic civilizations, potentially positioning her species as natural leaders rather than junior partners. The next morning brought a summons to Dean Valexthar's office for what the message described as progress evaluation and policy discussion. Maya arrived to find not only the Dean and Professor Mosul, but also several other faculty members she recognized as leaders in their respective fields. Ms. Chen, Dean Valexthar began, his energy patterns showing intense analytical processing, your academic performance over the past week has exceeded our most optimistic projections. Your demonstrated capabilities in theoretical physics, engineering, xenobiology, and strategic analysis suggest human cognitive potential far beyond current Federation assessments. Maya took a seat that had been configured for human physiology, trying to prepare herself for whatever conclusions the Academy administration had reached. However, the dean continued, your case raises questions that extend beyond academic evaluation. Professor Kellyan has prepared a comprehensive analysis of your cognitive patterns for submission to the Federation Educational Assessment Board. Commander Viralis has recommended revision of strategic doctrine to incorporate human cognitive flexibility principles. Dr. Correal suggests that current xenobiological classifications require fundamental reassessment. Professor Mosel's environmental suit hummed as he accessed data files. Ms. Chen, your presence at this academy has demonstrated that Federation policy regarding human capabilities is based on seriously inadequate information. The question now becomes how to address this error without creating instability in established interspecies relationships. Maya realized that her secret deception had evolved into a galactic political issue with implications she had never anticipated. What kind of instability are you concerned about? Dean Valexthar activated holographic displays showing Federation political and economic structures. Current resource allocation, research funding, and political representation are based on assessed cognitive capabilities of member species. If humans possess significantly greater intellectual potential than previously recognized, fundamental restructuring might be required. Maya studied the displays, beginning to understand the magnitude of the problem her presence had created. The Federation's entire approach to interspecies relations assumed that cognitive capabilities were relatively well understood and properly reflected in political and economic arrangements. Dean Valexthar, she said carefully, what recommendations will the Academy make regarding human capabilities? The ancient Etherian's energy patterns shifted as he considered his response. We will recommend immediate reassessment of human cognitive potential through expanded testing and educational opportunities. However, we will also suggest gradual implementation of any policy changes to allow adjustment periods for affected species and institutions. Maya felt a mixture of triumph and apprehension at this announcement. She had succeeded in proving that humans deserved recognition as intellectual equals to other Federation species, but the implications of that recognition were far more complex than she had anticipated. Ms. Chen, Dean Valexthar continued, your academic career has become a test case for human potential that will influence galactic policy for generations. Are you prepared to accept the responsibility that accompanies such recognition? Maya looked around the room at the assembled faculty members, beings whose research and teaching had shaped galactic civilization for centuries.